Hi, my name's Mary. If we haven't met before, I'm a teacher of English and Arabic. These are my tips to help you to improve in English. Leave me some comments whether you're watching this now live on Facebook or on YouTube when I post it afterwards. Let me know where you're watching from. Let me know any questions you have with English, anything that you're struggling with or that you need help with. Today we're looking at IELTS Writing Task 1 because lots of my students have found writing for the IELTS particularly challenging. So we're going to be looking at ways to make your writing more effective and how to use the time as efficiently as possible. For those of you that don't know about the IELTS, it's the International English Language Testing System, and it's a proficiency exam to show your level in English. Sometimes employers require this in certain industries. Also, universities sometimes need you to get the IELTS exam, and sometimes people need IELTS for immigration purposes as well. We're going to be looking at the IELTS Writing Task 1 from the academic IELTS exam, and for this task you need to summarize and explain a factual piece of information. So it might be a diagram or a chart. And you need to do this in a minimum of 150 words. And you need to do this as well as writing task 2 within 1 hour. And the timing can be quite challenging for a lot of people because you need to interpret the information and you need to think about how you're going to phrase this. And particularly when it's not your first language, that can take you a bit more time. So in order to do both the tasks in 1 hour, I suggest that you give more time to writing task 2 because it's a longer task. It's minimum 250 words, and also it has more weight in the marking, so it's more important in terms of the marks that you get at the end. Therefore, I suggest that you spend 20 minutes on writing task 1 and 35 minutes on writing task 2 with 5 minutes to check at the end. So you only have 20 minutes for writing task 1, which means that you need to make sure that you're using the time as efficiently and effectively as possible. This is why I'm going to give you my 5-point plan, which is going to help you to understand the information more quickly and will also give your structure in your writing a lot more clarity and enable you to hit the marking criteria that the examiners are looking for. As I said to a lot of my students, planning is not optional, it is an essential part of any writing exam, so make sure that you do it. So here are my 5 points. I'm using today an example taken from the IELTS official website, so that's IELTS.org, and this is one of their sample practice tests that they have there for you to look at. So let me just read the title for you. It says, the graph below shows radio and television audiences throughout the day in 1992. Summarize the information by selecting and reporting the main features and make comparisons where relevant. Okay, so the first point on my 5-point plan is to look at the unit. Now, in the case of line graphs, so line graph, the unit is going to be on the axes. So we've got at the bottom, can you see it says time of day or night here? And on the side, on this side, sorry, it says percentage of the UK population over 4 years old. So these are your units. We've got the time of day and we've got a percentage. So it's really important to notice these because they're going to inform how you're going to describe this information. So make sure that you've got the unit really clear. The next thing I want you to look at is the time. So we discussed that one of the units is the time of day or night. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm referring to is actually in the title. So it says radio and television audiences in the UK, October to December 1992. So this is your time frame, October to December 1992. This is when the data is talking about. And this is important to notice because it's going to tell you which tense you need to be using. So are you going to be using past simple? In this case, I would suggest that that's a good idea. Or if it's talking about from the past until the present, you're probably going to be using present perfect. And sometimes you have graphs which require you to make predictions for the future. So again, that would encourage you to use future tenses. So noticing the time is important to know which tense you're going to be using in your writing. Okay, so the next thing I want you to look at is the items. So this is how many pieces of information you have on your chart or on your graph. Here we have the items are television and radio. So we've got 2 items, which is nice and simple. Okay, then the next thing is the trend. And the trend is the general pattern of the information. So usually we talk about it having an upwards or maybe a downwards trend. And sometimes there's no clear trend. Sometimes there isn't really an obvious pattern in the information. In this example, I would say that there is a kind of trend in that they both decrease to 2 a.m. and they both hit around 2%, and then they both increase then until 6 a.m. Other than that, I think that they follow different patterns, because although they both peak, they peak at different times and then they decrease at different rates and increase at different rates. So I would say that they follow a different trend. If I was writing this in my answer in the IELTS exam, I'd probably say both radio and television fell to around 2% at 2 a.m. and then rose gradually until 6 a.m. However, they followed different trends throughout the rest of the data. Okay, that would be your trend. So we're talking about the general pattern of information. The next thing, and so this is the 5th and the final point, is to make comparisons. Now, with this example, you can make some pretty good comparisons. So we've got radio peaks at around 27%, whereas television peaks at about 45%. Also, radio peaks at about 8 a.m. in the morning, whereas television is around 8 p.m. And we can also say that from 8 a.m. onwards, radio fell until 2 a.m. when it started rising again, and television also rose until 8 p.m. and then fell sharply until 2 a.m. Okay, so there are some comparisons that you can make. The 5 points again, just to summarize, are we've got the unit, so in this case it was the percentage and also the time of day. We've got the time, so that was October to December 1992. We've got the items, that was radio and television. The trend, so we said that both radio and television fell to their lowest point at 2 a.m. to reach 2% and then rose gradually from there. And then finally, we've got comparisons, which is where you go into a little bit more detail. And remember to give specific examples with the comparisons. So make sure that you're giving the percentages, or at least an estimation of what the percentages are in your answer. So the great thing about this, about using these 5 points, is that you can take them and put them directly into your writing in pretty much the same order. So in your introduction, you would talk about the units, you talk about the time, and you talk about the items. Then when you're giving your overview, you talk about the main trend. And then after that, you go into a bit more detail and you give your comparison. So you can use exactly the same structure in your writing as in your plan, which is why I think this is a really effective, quick way to ensure that you're using your time the most effectively in those 20 minutes. I'm going to give you an example for this question next time when I see you. And please feel free to write your own example. I'm going to post the link to the question in the comments below. By all means, have a go at writing. Post a picture of your answer and I'll have a look at it if I can. And also, please ask me any questions that you have about the IELTS exam or any other areas of English that you're struggling with at the moment. Don't forget to like my page and also subscribe, and I'll see you next time.